Today I'm going to tell you about my top 10 favorite concert-going experiences. This is heavily informed by nostalgia, and in a lot of cases these bands are on this list because I was such a fan of their work at one point or another in their career that finally seeing them live was magical for me. Let's begin with number 10, Sepultura. This is a Brazilian heavy metal band, and I remember learning all of their riffs off of some of their most important albums. And when I saw them, they were touring kind of recently, long after their career had kind of faded, and the audience was not very big. It was sad to see such a powerful, world-renowned, noteworthy metal band in a bunker, like an airplane shelter, with only a handful of metalheads there to watch them. It was also noteworthy because I was there with a friend of mine who died a couple years later, so that was kind of difficult. That person was going to take me to see a band called Baroness that I've not really ever listened to, but that was going to be the trade. They were going to go with me to Sepultura. I was going to go to Baroness a few months later, but it didn't happen. They canceled that tour. So, unfortunately, before expiring, that friend of mine didn't get to see one of their favorite bands, so it's a shame. Number 9 for me is AFI. I saw them before they got famous with December Underground and Sing the Sorrow, all that stuff. This was when they were still in there, still getting to be famous as a punk band. They were at a festival called Crazy Fest, and I jumped on stage with my friend, and we crouched there in front of the stage before jumping off the stage, and the singer stood behind us, and kind of, the singer's prone to posing anyway, but I remember looking up and the singer was right behind us posing. And I became a great fan of their later material, a fan of their catalog altogether. I'm a fan of them. That friend also unfortunately died several years later, and it's sad, and it's like something important for me to remember because of the amount of fun. I was really, really young at the time, before reality hit and everybody starts dying. Okay, number 8 for me is Leftover Crack, another punk band. Very intense political themes in their music, and I'm aware of a lot of their work and also the things that they wrote with their previous band. I would perform some of their songs when I was playing with a punk band that I was in while I was in college, and one of the guys who would always come to our shows loved to jump on stage and sing along with those Leftover Crack songs. Actually, they're songs written by members of Leftover Crack. So when I saw them in concert, that guy was right at the front of the stage singing along, and then he died a couple months later. So all 3 of these concerts, making up the bottom of my top 10 list, I attended them with friends who are now dead. Alright, number 7 for me is Buckethead. I saw him 3 or 4 times one year, both as a solo act and with ensemble groups. The one I saw him with was Praxis at Bonnaroo Music Festival, and I stood right up in front of the stage, in front of Buckethead's amp, which was like a triple rectifier half stack, and I was bombarded with that sound through the entire set. And it took me on a hellish ride. But as an entertainer and a performer, I think he's brilliant. And he's got, I don't know how many, like 30 or 40 albums now, and I've got a handful of favorites. I've not heard all of his work, but some of it is incredible. And the mystique around the artist is really interesting too. And to see his dance performances mixed with virtuoso guitar work live and in person was great. Number 6 for me is the band Phish. This is a jam band who I was learning about in college. I had some friends who were really into the jam band scene. And so just as I was getting warmed up to their catalog, which is varied and interesting, having both weirder tunes and more like pop influenced, like quirky, like humorous music. They just have a wide range of music, and I was just learning about them, and I had found that I really liked one of their songs called Weekapaw Groove. And as soon as they started playing it while I was in concert with them, the crowd opened up beside me, and it was raining really heavily. People started running down the hill and sliding in the mud all the way to the bottom of the hill near the stage. And that was so fitting that this fun vibe was accenting hearing live my favorite track by them at the time, which is one that I was just new to listening to their music. And for a long time, I listened to all the different types of jam bands and saw a bunch of them in concert. But Phish's guitarist, Trey Anastasio, is the most skilled, I believe, and the most incredible improvisational guitarist in that genre, and with some mind-blowing explorations on the guitar. Number 5 for me is Little Dragon. This band helped me decide when to move. I knew I was moving to Connecticut, and I knew I wanted to see Little Dragon in New York, so I booked the concert first, and then I booked my train tickets, and then I arrived where I was going to be staying just a few days before the concert, and then went straight to the city to watch them. I love a lot of their music, and unfortunately at the concert they did not play a lot of my favorite tunes because they were touring to support a new album. And I thought that the previous 2 releases were far better, and was really hoping to hear certain tracks that didn't make it into the set list. But still, it was really, really exciting to see them. And I drank too much tequila. And I just remember having a wonderful time. And good stage presence, good sound. They're an awesome band, especially their album Machine Dreams, and also the self-titled album that came before that. Number 4 for me is Tool. In the late 90s, they were the best band on the landscape for like experimental rock music, and this was before the internet, so all that myself and my friends could access were the widely marketed bands, and they were the cream of the crop, both because of their weird imagery and the awesome experimental music and the skill of their drummer playing in odd time signatures, and the eeriness of some of the tunes, and just the mystery surrounding them. They were definitely the best band around. And when I saw them, they were touring with this extremely elaborate tour setup, and every I was dotted and every T was crossed to make for an extremely fun, psychedelic, like, adventure. The concert was so good, and I saw them a bunch of times, really, and I saw bands connected to Tool, like A Perfect Circle, and then a few times also. And my favorite touring act that I saw them with was Meshuggah, which is a really crazy off-kilter metal band, and so that was great. And among my friends, I was the only one who had explored Meshuggah's music and knew about what was going on. They were touring on an album called Chaosphere at the time, and I knew all those songs, so whenever they would start a new one, I would turn around looking into my friends' eyes, like trying to look for a glimmer of recognition so that they could enjoy the moment with me too, but they didn't know anything about Meshuggah, so it was disappointing. Number 3 for me is Green Jelly. This band became famous for their humorous albums, and they were just a rock band who made absurd songs about absurd topics, and I was a huge fan of them in middle school. And they came out of the woodwork to do like a nostalgia act and did a big tour, and I saw them in a small club, in a bar, basically. And to hear those songs that I had grown up listening to and being a big fan of them was too much fun. And actually they had a big crucifix that was covered in shag carpet as one of their props. It just shows you how absurd the band is. And at one point in the show, it was thrown into the audience, and it smacked me right on the face, and it smelled of beer, and I didn't even want to think about the gunk that it had been laying in on the floors of so many different bars. And it was the best moment. I loved it so much. Number 2 for me is Weird Al Yankovic. Another favorite of mine. Before he was catapulted into superstardom by his covers on the album Even Worse, I had all of his cassettes of his earlier material, and I was a giant fan, and still am. He's managed to stay vibrant and important in today's musical landscape somehow, just by always adapting to the times. And although, that's the thing, I don't know any of his music now because I'm not really too aware of pop music, but as an artist, he's incredible. He's a virtuoso accordion player, and his band, being able to switch gears and play a rock song and a pop song and an R&B song and so many different things. It was astounding to watch all that stuff manifest on stage, and the nostalgia hit was incredible. He played one song from his early catalog, and it was such a grand moment. And I really love Weird Al, of course. Number 1 for me is the Chieftains. This is an Irish band playing Celtic music, and it's the most beautiful, enchanting musical style to me, and it transports me just to hear it. Seeing them in concert, I was right up front, and then toward the end of the show, they had the dancers who they were featuring run through the network of chairs and rows where people were sitting, inviting people to follow them up onto the stage and dance. So as their concert concluded, I was there on stage with them, sort of dancing along to the music, and that made for a really memorable experience. It was extremely fun to be transported, and I think it's the best living band in the world, and they're my favorite band. I've got all their DVDs. I watched them all dozens and dozens of times, and I think they've released some landmark albums, and they're living legends. And so there you have it, my top 10 concert-going experiences. Of course, I can't remember every show I've been to, and I, of course, had to leave out a lot of stuff. My first show was Ozzy Osbourne in 1996 with Korn, and then missed the list, but it was pretty awesome.